One of the solutions that you present in the book is that we should just spend what we take in.
It sounds like a novel concept. That's the way it works in my household. Whatever comes in, we're allowed to spend. We can't spend what doesn't come in. It's not exactly true. People do borrow a little bit of money. People borrow, and I think there are reasonable times when you have a reasonable down payment on a house or something to borrow money for things like that. But it doesn't make sense for most of us to borrow for our normal day-to-day needs, and that's what government's doing now. But we bring in a lot of money, because sometimes I get accused and people say, oh, you don't believe in any government. And I say, well, no, I believe in $2.4 trillion worth. That's a lot of government. But we're spending 3.7. We bring in nearly or a little more than $2 trillion, but we're spending $3.7 trillion. That I don't think can last forever.
And I think that the idea of spending what we take in is something that ordinary American citizens can really identify with.
Well, and then it's not an either-or situation. They always try to make it either government's going to shut down and nobody will get any checks and everything closes, the national parks will close, or you give me what I want. And maybe the in-between solution is that we don't shut it down, we don't keep spending like we have been, but we spend at a reduced level. And maybe that reduced level should be how much money comes in.
Thank you. Also, in terms of spending, you talk about how obviously we can't spend our way out of the recession, and that's what the Bush stimulus was,
Right.
And then what the Obama stimulus was. And it seems that President Obama is continuing to talk about spending in order to create jobs.
Right.
So how do we create jobs without doing that, without the stimulus packages?
I remember after 9/11, the President Bush saying, go to the mall. And I always think of it in sort of the voice of George Carlin, just go to the mall, just go to the mall, everything will be okay, just go to the mall and go shopping. And that to me doesn't sound like a very long thinking kind of strategy. And so I think you can't consume your way out, you have to make things too. And you can't do it through government money because government inherently is inefficient. I sometimes say it's not that government is inherently stupid, although it's a debatable point. I'll say they don't get the same signals. When you go to Walmart, Walmart gets a signal every week and every day. Are they making a profit? Can they make their payroll? Can they meet their taxes? Can they keep their doors open? The federal government never gets those signals, so the federal government is inefficient. So if you say who should create jobs, the government sector or the private sector, you'd rather the private sector because they're more efficient. Now, there are certain things the private sector can't do. We probably can't have private armies. We probably can't have private interstate roads. So really, there are things government can do. We should keep them at a minimum, though. Balance our budget, keep government small, and try to let the private sector tackle the other things. Also, it's a way for us to vote on who gets the jobs. You vote by buying a product. If you like this kind of toothpaste, they do well and they hire more people. If you like this kind, they do well and hire more people. But government really, by picking the winners and losers, doesn't know who the best people are to make the products and doesn't even know what the best products are to be produced.
Because that's not their job.
Right.
Right. Okay. On to foreign aid. You've proposed that we cut all foreign aid. Do you think that it's particularly damaging that we give money to Arab countries where terrorists live and train?
Right.
And what are those countries?
Right. Well, the interesting thing about foreign aid is they did a poll recently and they asked the public, would you agree to certain cuts in spending? The only thing that the vast majority of people were in favor of was cutting foreign aid. We give, it's not an enormous amount, it's not enough to balance the budget, but it's still $25, $30 billion a year. Some of it does go to countries that have been areas where terrorism has occurred and where we've had terrorist training. Some of it has gone to leaders like in Egypt who weren't in favor of allowing political freedom for their citizens. They didn't have the right to gather and associate. They didn't have the right to print and publish what their opinion was on the government. And yet we gave Mubarak $50 billion, much of which he stole. Some of it is given as humanitarian aid, like to Africa, to nations that are in the third world. But much of that is stolen by their leaders. There was a leader, Mugabe, in the southern part of Africa, and Mobutu in Congo, And there were estimates they stole the vast majority of what was given to them. And they became the richest people in the world, and their people in their country still had no running water and no electricity, and yet these people lived in Paris and had money in Swiss bank accounts. And, you know, the question would be whether it would even be advisable if it was from our savings, but we have no savings. We're now borrowing that money from China to give to other foreign countries, and I think we can't do that anymore.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Okay, now the Republican establishment has said that they're going to co-opt the Tea Party. Now that you're in the Senate, do you see that happening?
Well, I think it's kind of funny when they said that, because even before we were sworn in, the new group, and many of these were from the Tea Party, the Republican establishment agreed not to do earmarks, even though they have liked doing the earmarking, you know, putting special little check marks next to their particular pork barrel projects that they like. They agreed not to do it. And then the president, even in his State of the Union, said he was going to veto any bill that had earmarks on it. So I think we're co-opting them, not vice versa.
So it's true, the Tea Party has come to Washington. And my final question, do you believe that real change is possible?
I think real change is inevitable. I don't know how quickly it comes. I think the reason it will come is because we have serious problems, you know, meeting our obligations. Right now they're having a big controversy in Wisconsin because they're short of money. And we're short of money in Washington. I kind of like the response from the governor of Wisconsin. He said, the president came in and told him what he should do in Wisconsin. He said, look, Mr. President, when you've figured out your federal budgetary problems, then you can come to Wisconsin and talk to me. But it's true. I think we're going to see more of this. And I think the change comes inevitably simply because the problems aren't going away.
That's right. Well, thank you so much,
Thank
Senator,
you.
for your time, and thank you for your
Thank
service to our country.
Thank you for all your help.
Thank you.